Hello and welcome to my shop. I made some progress this week on the Intarsia project. Not as much as I would have liked, but it's been awful darn cold. I did get down the basement and put several coats of shellac on all of the parts. I have one part left to be textured, and I'll get to that hopefully during the week. And I had a little bit of an issue with the face of the snowman, and I'll show you what happened later in the video. In my previous vlog, you might remember I had a piece that I had to remake. It was down by the Christmas tree, and this was the original piece that was there, and it's no longer needed for the Intarsia, but since it's finished and sanded the same as all the rest of the pieces, I'm going to use this as a test piece to test out my shellac. What I plan on doing is measuring out a little bit of this shellac into a cup, and then making a 50-50 mixture with some denatured alcohol, and I'm going to brush that onto the piece. My objective is to see if this shellac, which it actually says it will not yellow, it's clear, transparent, and it says it will not yellow, but my objective is to verify that before I do the entire piece in shellac. So my plan is to go ahead and finish this piece, and then I'm going to wait the amount of time that it recommends on the can, and I'm going to go ahead and put 3 coats on it, and then I'm going to hit it with some 600 sandpaper, and then I'll put a 4th coat, which is what I plan to do to the rest of the Intarsia project. So my hope is, once this has dried from the 4th and final coat, I can compare it to the aspen on the puzzle the Intarsia that has not been finished, and my hope is it will retain a majority of the same color so that it does still look like snow. I'm just going to use a plastic spoon, and I'm going to spoon out a spoonful of shellac. And then I'm going to grab a spoonful of denatured alcohol. Okay. I'm going to kind of mix that together really good. And I'm going to use that to brush onto my piece. All right, let's see what we've got. Just making sure I don't have any runs. We'll go ahead and put it right here to dry. And comparing it to one of the original pieces, it's still wet right now, but you can see there's not much difference at this point. So I'm hoping it stays that way. I'm going to put it away and let it dry for the recommended time, and we'll come back for a second coat. This shellac dried relatively quickly, and I am preparing to apply a second coat. Brushes on real easy. I keep checking the piece for runs because as you paint it on, it will kind of run over the piece, but what I'm finding, I guess I'm used to using polyurethane. This doesn't really have a lot of issue with runs. I mean, it pretty well goes on nice and smooth and dries in a few minutes and looks really good. So that's coat number 2. Okay, I've got 2 coats on and completely dry. And as I compare the pieces, my lighting isn't the best down here in the basement. It's just too cold in the shop to do this. I am noticing absolutely no difference in the color. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the 3rd coat, and then I will sand and put the final coat on. And if it continues to look like this, I'm ready to start shellacking the rest of the project. All right, I've got a little bit of 320 sandpaper here, and I'm just going to lightly scuff my piece just to make sure if there's any high spots or anything, I take them off. Okay. What you saw, or the last thing you saw, was me roughing this up or scuffing it up with a little 320 sandpaper. Then I applied the fourth and final coat. And what I've got is the top piece is a raw piece of aspen, and the bottom piece is a piece of aspen that has 4 coats of shellac on it. And truthfully, I don't see a lot of difference in the color. I'll rotate them so you can see it the other way. I wish my lighting was a little better down here, but I think this is going to work out real well. And I'm going to go ahead and begin applying shellac to all of the pieces. Something that I didn't mention in the very first shot I took, prior to applying the first coat of shellac to any of the pieces, I'm using a tack cloth to tack them off and take any dust from that might be left from the sanding process off of them, and just to make sure they're good and clean. So I'm going to start off by tacking all of these pieces with my tack cloth, and then I'll mix up some more shellac and I'll shellac them. And once I get all of my pieces shellacked, I'll come back and show you guys what everything looks like. I've got the first coat of shellac on everything, and it's looking really good. There's the background there. It's got shellac on it. I had one issue that I want to point out to you guys so that you don't have the same problem I do, because now I've got to fix this before I can finalize the Intarsia. The face of my clown, you might remember I turned a couple of eyes, and I used a permanent marker to color those eyes. Since I'm mixing alcohol with my shellac, as soon as the alcohol hit that ink, it dissolved it and it soaked into the clown's face. And you can see I tried to wipe it off, which didn't do anything more than just kind of rub it in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to sand around the eyes and take the purple out of the wood, if at all possible. And once I do that, it looks like if I look closer, even around the nose, some of the Paduke is bleeding into the aspen. But hopefully if I sand this out a little bit and clean it up, I'll be doing some polyurethane on another project I'm working on. I'll slap a dot of poly on the eyes and the nose so that it won't bleed anymore, and then I'll come back and put my shellac on this. The last thing I need to do is the Christmas tree. It does not have the texturing done to it yet, so I'm going to work on texturing that. And once it's textured, I'll get 3 coats of shellac on that. So probably the clown's face, the owl's face, and the tree will get shellacked at the same time. I did not attempt to put shellac on the owl's face because his eyes are the same as the snowman's, and I don't want them to bleed all over the lighter wood. I've got 3 coats on everything now, with the exception of the face. I talked about that earlier. I need to clean that up. I'm going to let this set overnight, dry really well, and then next chance I get, I'll go ahead and hit it with the 320, sand it, just scuff it up a little bit. I'll tack it off again, and then I'll go ahead and put the 4th and final coat on, and then I'll be ready for assembly. In the meantime, I'm going to go back, obviously work on the face of the snowman and the owl, and then I'll also work on texturing the Christmas tree. And at that point, I'll be ready to put some shellac on those. I hope you've liked everything that you've seen, and if you do, please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video. I'd also welcome any comments that you might have.